Brandon Robinson here with the Make America Great Again podcast. So, man, a lot of stuff has went down since last time we talked. Where to start? Let's start with the most recent Florida school shooting. I don't really want to say his name, but come on, Nicholas Cruz. Okay, you know, in case you need to Google it so you can look shit up. Let's just say he didn't have a chance. His dad died when he was like 5 or 6 or something. His mom died like a year ago, and he's been living with some classmate or something's parents. He's not been living with anyone that really gives a shit about him for about a year. Is all I'm saying. His mom died a year ago, and he's just been kind of sailing through life being a 19-year-old fuck up. Okay, so it's a tragedy. What are you gonna say about it, right? What do you do? The FBI had at least one call-in name with a YouTube user that literally was his name, and they couldn't, I guess, figure it out and go talk to him directly and realize, hey, maybe we should put tabs on this guy. Nope. So, FBI screwed up for sure. Whoever he was living with definitely screwed up for sure, because, I mean, I don't care, you know, oh, it's not my kid. Well, I mean, he's a 19-year-old kid and he's living with you, so he's your fucking kid. So, you're responsible for making sure he doesn't go and shoot up a school. That's all I'm saying. Like, hey, you know, this guy's pretty disturbed. Maybe I should report him. That's all I'm saying. As he's sitting there polishing his guns, going, oh, I want to kill kids. You know? I mean, what the fuck? So, FBI screwed up. Whoever he was living with, one of his friend's parents definitely screwed up. Again, he didn't have, like, actual parents around. I mean, you can't even blame the parents here. You just have to blame us. Honestly. You have to blame us. Like, just us as a society. So, and of course, body's not even cold, and sure enough, out of the woodwork, students are very anti-gun and want to set up marches and march across the country and or whatever and be anti-gun, and we're going to get gun laws. And all right, first of all, this David kid that is all over the news. I mean, literally the only kid. David. Oh, what was his name? It was like David Hogg, I think, or Bog, or whatever. So he he had an interview on CBS 2 in California 6 months ago where he had made a video about his friend who had gotten harassed by a lifeguard on the beach, and he had interviewed, you know, he had recorded the lifeguard harassing his buddy, and then he had interviewed on the news for it. So that was 6 months ago in California, where he was angry about authority or whatnot. I mean, in reality, the kid was cursing at the lifeguard, and then the lifeguard went on a diatribe about how kids are disrespectful and all that, blah blah blah. You get it though. The kid was literally telling him to fuck off, and then the lifeguard responded as any adult would to a kid telling him to fuck off, and then this was, I guess, a news story. So anyways, this kid, you know, he went on the news and said oh, my buddy, he was getting harassed by the lifeguard, blah, blah, blah. Cry, you know. And that was 6 months ago, and now imagine that he lives in Parkland, Florida, and went to the school where this guy shot some people up. And apparently, maybe, I guess he was just on vacation in California when this stuff happened. So I don't know about you, but usually when I'm on vacation, I don't end up on the news. I don't end up recording YouTube videos and uploading it and getting TV spots on the local news channel when I'm vacationing. So, I mean, it's kind of suspicious. Just throw this out there. Oh, and apparently his father's FBI as well. That's also very suspicious, since the FBI is not the most reliable source of information and confidence in the last year or two or 3 or 10 or forever, whoever you are and whatever you know about them. I'm just saying, maybe a bureau that was solely created by the federal government to investigate, it was created back, in the like the mafia days, to like figure out what these mafia guys are doing, and really it was just a hit squad to kill mafia people, and then it went from hit squad to pretty much like political assassination squad, and that's where it's been since the 1950s, roughly. And then shocker, now they want to get rid of Trump. Whatever. But anyways, back to Florida, school shooting, all that good stuff. So Nicholas Cruz, again, sorry. I'll try not to say his name even a third time. I didn't even want to say it once, but, because literally, fuck this kid. And fuck him in so many ways. But also, it's been less than a week, and he's already begging for a plea deal. He's saying he will plead guilty to 17 counts of premeditated murder as long as the death penalty is off the table. Fuck you, kid. That's all I got to say. Tough shit. If you get convicted, we want to see you fucking fry. I mean, like, we'd bring back the noose just for you, okay? Like, it's the one usual common thing with school shooters. They kill themselves or get killed or whatever. They don't make it to trial usually. So this will be interesting because there's no one that's going to feel sorry for this fucking kid. I mean, holy shit. And if he makes it to trial, who knows? If that'll be kind of the way we find out if this is like a false flag, deep state, like crazy thing, or if it was literally just a fuck up and, some kid going crazy. Because if he makes it to trial and actually like talks and stuff and like tries it, then yeah, he was just some crazy kid. If he dies before then we know, yeah, that was just a government thing to try to take our guns yet again. Just like Las Vegas. Don't let me, I won't even get into Las Vegas, but all we're going to say is obviously nothing makes sense there, and it's been quite a few months and we still don't have any stories whatsoever that actually are, like, how many times has the timeline changed? What happened to Jesus Campos? He did like a 5-minute interview on Ellen and that was it. Disappeared off the map. Cool. The only person that could actually tell us whether or not there were gunshots coming from that hotel room for real. Whatever. So, anyways, Nicholas Cruz. Fuck. I said it a third time. This asshole wants a plea bargain, and I say fuck that. This guy needs to fry. We need to put a, call it a, we definitely need to let everyone know that if you somehow survive your ability to go shoot up a school, you definitely get killed afterwards, either by the cops or by the parents or by the courts. One of the 3 ways, you're fucking dead, because that's not acceptable. You don't just get to go shoot up our kids at schools. And like, what? He's going to get to live the rest of his life in jail, getting 2 to 3 meals a day, like possibly not getting fucked in the mouth by big black dudes? Nope. I'm not going to have any of that. That dude's either going to get raped every day of the rest of his life until he gets raped to death someday, or he needs to get a fucking electric chair. That's it. You don't get to pre-plan a mass murder at a school of people you knew and went to school with and get to live. Okay? Sorry. That's not fucking... Nope. Because that's the only way, if he did go to jail, guarantee you he'd have to live the rest of his life in solitary confinement, because that motherfucker would get stabbed in a second in general population. That's all I'm saying. There's not any like, oh, I'm the guy that killed 17 innocent children. Nope, even rapists will fucking despise you and kill you, dude. You're fucked, okay? Sorry for all the cursing. I know I'm not being very family friendly and whatnot, but I've never claimed to be. So I mark 99.9% of my episodes explicit. I can literally only think of one episode I've ever done in which I did not curse in, and technically I still like said ass or something in it. Okay, but and I tried real hard not to cuss, but it's not my nature, especially when I get amped up and want to talk about shit on a podcast. I want to curse and be angry about it. So sorry, I guess. Don't let your kids listen to this. If you're an adult and you can't deal with the occasional curse word, you should probably pick a different podcast. Anyways, so enough of this asshole kid, not his name. Moving on to other things. What else did we miss here? So, I read you the FISA memo an episode or two ago, and that was interesting, right? And the Democrats tried to put out their own memo, which the courts would have, or the DOJ and the executive office would gladly release if they wanted to redact a few things. They purposely made the memo so that they could go, see, you won't let us have our memo. And they're like, yeah, but you put like state secrets in there that like we're not allowed to reveal. So what do you want? Like, do you want to reveal classified information or... Anyways, so, and then Adam Schiff just sits on his hands and doesn't edit his memo and actually get it out. He's just like, nope. You see, you won't let us tell our side. You're Hitler or something. I don't know. I've lost track of like what he expects, what he's calling the right now. What kind of dictator Trump supposedly is. It's just funny. But anyways, and then after the Democrat memo that I guess didn't get released, Mueller brought charges against 13 Russian trolls. That's fun. That's like super fun because he didn't even indict the Russian trolls for electioneering, or I think, yeah, that's what it's called, electioneering. It's like rigging an election. That's what they call it, electioneering. It's a fun word. Anyways, didn't charge him with any kind of like election fraud or anything like that. They charged him with like identity fraud and a couple other random things that go along with identity fraud. So it has nothing to do with like the actual outcome of the election. And Rod Rosenstein got on in front of a camera and said this had nothing to do with the outcome of the election. So like, let me get this straight. The Russian collusion special counsel Rob Mueller just brought charges against 13 Russians for making fake accounts and saying that Hillary sucks. And by the way, the majority of their money, like 95% of the 13 trolls like money budget was spent like either previous to the primaries or post-election. I forget. Either way, it like wasn't even during the time in which like Trump was the main thing to argue against. And the trolls, like literally on November 13th, they had both a anti-Trump rally and a anti-Hillary Clinton rally at the same time. They organized two rallies at the same time for both sides. If that doesn't tell you all you need to know right there, their whole point was to make people mad and hate each other. And I hate to break it to you, liberals, but our side, we don't hate you. We're waiting for you to come around, and we will gladly accept you into the fold like we have everyone else who has came around in the last year and a half. Okay? We're just waiting on you. You're the one that's sowing discord. You're the one that is screaming hate. Hey, you're Nazis! Are we calling you any names? Are we accusing you of doing anything like treasonous? Oh, we're not. Oh, that's right. Because we won and we're happy. And we don't have any reason to like scream at the top of our lungs hateful things at the other people. But you do. And you've been literally doing Russia's work for them. Like, you have to understand that Russia, they stopped sowing discord because they didn't need to anymore. It's like it was a giant boulder of making us hate each other, and they just gave it a push down the hill, and then liberals just ran with it. I mean, between Antifas, like, consider this: if Antifa had never been formed and started beating up conservative people for liking Trump and having pro-Trump rallies, would we even have had pro-Trump rallies if Antifa didn't exist? And Antifa solely exists to resist Trump because he's a Russian puppet? I mean, think about that for a second. I mean, just consider it that if Russia obviously did not buy Donald Trump or bribe him or force him to become president in any way or blackmail him afterwards. I mean, none of that happened, okay? And I mean, in case you're still on the fence, just remember that Donald Trump, like, has literally had both the FBI and the CIA up his ass, listening to everything he says, everything he does, looking at everywhere he goes, seeing it, like everyone he's ever talked to in his life and scanning all them too. They can't find anything on him. It's been this long. They still got jack. Like, he might be a brutish, pussy-grabbing, billionaire, snobby asshole, but he's not corrupt. Not any more corrupt than, like, slipping, someone $100 to, like, let him in the back of, a thing, like a concert or something. Like, he is definitely, like, short of business bribes to move shit along. That dude is not, like, any kind of treasonous, he's doing, Russian business. I mean, it's crazy. And then, like, they point at the fact that he didn't enable Russian sanctions on the Russians recently as like, oh, you see, there you go. And it's like, oh, you mean the crazy Russian sanctions that Obama put in place right before he got out of office? Those sanctions? The ones that didn't exist previous to, like, 2 months before Obama left office? Like, you understand how much Obama did in the last 3 months of his presidency, like, after Trump was elected? Like, it's insane. Like, 99.9% of presidents, like, from the time of November to January, they don't do shit. Seriously, because they're like, hey, I know I'm technically president till January 20th, but also I understand you're really the president now. Okay, you're like the president waiting for me to, like, hand you the presidency. Honestly, Trump should have just been president like November 9th. Like, there shouldn't be this whole stupid 3-month, like, gap. Okay? So anyways, Obama did a bunch of crazy shit in those, like, 3 months. And that's because he was totally planning on Hillary being president and him not having to cover up all kinds of wrongdoings. And, I mean, which was really done by him because, historically, when you go 8 years, it almost always swings to the other side. And when I say almost, I mean like 95% of the time. If you have 8 years of a Democrat, then you have 8 years of a Republican, and then you have 8 years of a Democrat. The only time it changes is if it, like, happens in the mid-year. Okay, that's the only time you get, like... So, I mean, it was, like, almost automatic that Republicans were going to win the presidency this time. Like, and still Hillary was dumb enough to collude with the media and make sure that Trump won the nomination because she thought that he was going to be the easier candidate. But she was just living in this crazy dream world that she was going to be that 5% of the time that it doesn't go the other way, and they were going to somehow get like 12 years or 16 years of Democrat Party instead of it only the 8. It's insane. Go look it up. I mean, that's how it goes. It goes 8 and 8 or 8 and 4 or 4 and 8. Like, it doesn't... It's because when you're the president and you're in charge of the government and your party's in charge of the government, people eventually get tired of you and want to try something else. And it usually takes about 4 to 8 years before they're like, yeah, fuck this guy or fuck these people. So anyways, between the fact that we had just had 8 years of Democrats running shit and Hillary was an awful candidate and they completely ostracized white working men completely, and like the whole middle of the country, like you take out New York and California, and they pretty much ignored the rest of the country. I mean, I guess they just assumed they were going to be able to steal the election. I don't know. I have no idea what their plan was. Like, I can tell you this though. Either A, I'm an adult now and I just like see the stuff more clearly, or B, this was the biggest screw up they ever had. Because I mean, like, in all my years of paying attention at least slightly to like political stuff, the Democrats didn't seem like they were trying at all. They just thought they just seemed like they had this shit in the bag as soon as Donald Trump became the candidate. They're just like, oh, oh, we're running against Donald Trump. No big deal. Biggie. That's not a... Even though, like, every presidential election in the last, like, 50 years has been won by, like, 4% or some shit. But, yeah, no big deal. We're not even going to pay attention. We don't even need to worry about all the Republican voters and try to win some of them over. Or go to places like Wisconsin. Poor Hillary. I mean, not really. She's an evil cunt. But more like poor Democrats that thought Hillary was their savior. I really do feel sorry for you. Like, and I'm not saying that in a smart ass way. I feel for you. I seriously, like, as bad as I feel for Trump and the hate you're giving him right now, I'm sure that that's how you felt when everyone was giving Hillary all their hate. And it's honestly just because you've never went and read her WikiLeaks emails, and you've never wanted to spend an hour of your life just Googling Hillary Clinton to realize how terrible she is. And I understand that. Like, trust me, I didn't enjoy Donald Trump as a person. I love him as a president, but previous to him running as a political candidate, I could give a shit less about Donald Trump. Sorry. I didn't ever watch The Apprentice, and he was just some billionaire dude that was balling out of control, having buildings with his name in gold on them. Like, that wasn't an interest to me at all. And then he ran for president, and he was telling everyone to fuck off, and that you're low energy Jeb, and coming up with nicknames for everyone, and saying that he had taken all their money and done stuff for them. And, I mean, just... He reminded me much of, Ron Paul, as I've said before, not in a like actual smart fiscal libertarian way, just a telling the system to fuck themselves kind of way, right? So, I don't know. He doesn't like come off as a brutish asshole like he did when he was on The Apprentice. Now he like actually seems like he wants to make the country great again. No joke. I mean, sorry for believing that, but I went from voting for Obama and could give a shit less about Donald Trump to, hey, look at that guy. He's telling all Republicans to screw off. And Bernie Sanders, the guy that just told me I don't know what it's like to be poor because I'm white, he just got screwed out of the election by Hillary. And that, even before it was like actually proven via emails that they screwed Bernie, we all knew, like, it was all over like the internet, because he was like, there were the electoral votes that were promised to him, and then like they would go to Hillary instead. Like, it was crazy. It happened in multiple states. It's like they weren't even paying attention. Like, more people would vote for Bernie than Hillary in a state, and the votes would still go to Hillary somehow. I mean, and then yeah, later we find out, it's because Hillary literally bought the DNC. It's because the DNC was going broke, and Hillary went, hey, here's a few $1 billion. Now do what I say. And they're like, yeah, cool. Yeah, I mean, because otherwise we weren't a political party anymore. So we'll take your money, and you could be the candidate. Shocker. Sorry, Bernie. But for real. So Bernie, who I didn't love, but it was kind of like, all right, I voted for Obama last time. I absolutely hate Hillary. I'd rather chop my dick off than vote for Hillary. So I guess I'm going with this Bernie guy that wants to give away free college. Doesn't sound that terrible. Doesn't sound like possible, but doesn't, like, if that's his thing, I mean, that's better than like, let's go to war, which is what Hillary wanted. She wanted to set up a no-fly zone in Syria, which is code for I want to go to war with Russia, because Russia was the one flying planes in Syria. Not Syrians, Russians. And she's like, yeah, I want to make it so anyone that flies in Syria, we shoot them down. And I'm like, well, that sounds like a very crazy idea. And I'm not that into politics or like not nearly as much as I am now. Jesus. Like I barely knew anything about the the global politics and all that stuff before Trump and doing this podcast. But even I, in my ignorant self, was like, well, that sounds dumb. Telling Russia they're not allowed to provide air support to a country that they were invited to and we weren't. That sounds like an act of war to me. And I'm just a layman. Now looking back, it was definitely an act of war. And that's why I ended up voting for Donald Trump. Because it was Trump or war with Russia. And also, I mean, it's not that I bought every single thing Trump said, but I'm like, shit, if he does even a tenth of what he's saying, that would be fantastic. So whatever. And sure enough, he's done quite a bit. So, I don't regret my vote at all. But again, was not a fan of Donald Trump until he became president and started rocking shit. And then I'm like, yes, fantastic. So, I mean, I literally started this podcast when he was inaugurated. That was like day one of this podcast. It's like, oh, he made it. No one shot him. I guess we should start a podcast and talk about it. But anyways, I digress. Not really, because that's the whole point of this is to digress. It's a podcast. But the only other thing I really wanted to cover was that I just saw that Nikki Haley was, complaining to the UN that they're a bunch of cucks pretty much, and all they want to do is hate on Israel and love Palestine. And the Palestinian president walked out. And first I chuckled because I was like, Palestine has a president? And I get it. Like, I'm sure that it's like supposed to be a real country, but it really isn't. It was like only a country after Israel basically kicked out a Arab community out of their country, and the Arabs were then like, well, fine, we're Palestinians then, and they like made up a word, and that's like how. So my point is, there's never actually been a Palestine. Like, that country's never actually existed. It was Israel, and then Israel kind of like kicked out some of the Arabs that were over here, and they're like, fine, we'll form our own country, Palestine. And and Israel was like, no, you fucking won't. That's our land. And they're like, nuh-uh. And that's pretty much where we've been at for about 50 fucking years. Okay? So, and Palestine's still going, no, we need our own country over here. And Israel's pretty much still like, no, that's our shit. Why don't you like go anywhere else? Why don't you leave to one of the 4 Muslim countries that surround us? Like, we're this big, they're all this big, and all around us. And we're this big right in the center. Why don't you go somewhere else? Instead of trying to take our little piece and be like, we want this much of it. No, that doesn't make any fucking sense, okay? Sorry to break it to you, but there was this thing called World War II, and a guy named Hitler who was real pissed off because we really fucked him over in World War I, and then he rallied the troops and stuff and got Germany behind him for World War II. And then he was like, oh, screw these Jews, and started putting them in work camps. And then he ran out of room and started murdering the Jews, and it was no good, right? And not just the Jews, it was like blacks and gays and stuff too. But, he murdered a good 10 million of random people he didn't like. And then, and don't get me wrong, Stalin murdered like 40 million of the people he didn't like at the same time. So it's not even like Hitler was the worst guy around at the time. But you see, Stalin kind of killed his own people, whereas Hitler like moved to other countries and killed Jews in that country and stuff too. If Hitler just would have stuck to like Germany and killed like all their Jews, gays, and blacks, no biggie, okay? Like, life goes on. But he like expanded to other countries and killed all their Jews, gays, and blacks, and that's World War II. For you in a nutshell. So after World War II, we were like, hey, we got all these like Jews in camps and all their houses and shit is gone. And where do we put them? And so we went to like this Arab country and went, hey, we're going to take this little section here and we're going to put all these Jews in it. And they were like, fuck that. No, we do not agree to that at all. That's not cool. And we're like, yeah, cool. So we're going to go ahead and ship them there. And these are their borders now. And they're like, no. And we're like, yep, so that's what's happening. Or we'll just like, you know those nukes we dropped on Japan? Well, welcome to the Middle East. And that's what we'll fucking drop on you. So Jews, right there. That's where we're putting them. Get over it. And that's how Israel was born. So it's not like they ever stood a chance of getting along with the Muslims surrounding them. And the only reason they exist is because they are like our little cousin or nephew or brother or whatever you want to call them. If they didn't have any attachment to the U.S. and they didn't have nuclear weapons, they would be obliterated already. They definitely would have already been way dead. Like all the Arab countries around them would have formed a coalition and just like went and killed them all. No problem. Okay? Like the only reason they can't do that is, again, because since like the 1960s, Israel has nukes. So, and they're, they have us supporting them both with military and money. So, and honestly, we do that because it's the only kind of stable democracy that has nukes that is on our side in that region of the world. So, we like to say it's because like they're Jewish and it's like being Christian or whatever, but it's really just because like, hey, you guys are badasses down there and you've carved out your little slice of fuck you Arabs and we will continue to give you money as long as you keep that shit up. That's all I'm saying. So it being the whole, the homeland of Israel people that's not why the government gives them money and supports them. It's because they keep the Arabs in check. So, and that's what we want. We want to keep the Arabs in check, So anyways, that's why we put them there. That's why they're there. That's why we keep supporting them. And they're going to continue to do that forever. And Trump has just been the most the last 3 presidents have been kind of hush hush on the hey, Israel, we love you, but we can't really say it, okay? And Trump's like, hey, Israel, big fucking hug right in front of everyone. Fuck you all. Double fingers. Haha. He doesn't give a shit. So that's why he recognized Jerusalem as their capital. That's why he has Nikki Haley making the president of Palestine storm out. Again, I laugh at president of Palestine because you have to have eventually been a country at one point to have an election and elect someone. Anyone that's called the president of Palestine is only elected by Hezbollah or whatever terrorist organization is currently running Palestine, because it's not a country and it hasn't had sanctioned elections to actually elect a leader ever, because it hasn't existed. Anyways, so. And again, like, the only reason the Palestinian people, like, hang out in that exact region and, like, exist instead of just going, you know, like 30 miles in any direction to one of the other Arab countries, it's because the other Arab countries want them to be there and to be pissing off. Like, they all get to just support these Palestinians and constantly have Israel kill Palestinian innocent people. Like, they want innocent Arabs to be there for Israel to bomb so that they can continue to point at Israel as the boogeyman. And meanwhile, they like launch rockets into Israel and shit. And then, like, as Israel responds, you know, like, they'll like here's a for instance. Palestinians will literally like stand on top of an elementary school in Palestine and launch a rocket at Israel. And then when Israel sends one back to the source of where the rocket was, oh, it's an elementary school. Shocker. And then, like, now Israel's the bad guy. But in reality, like, they just built that elementary school last week. Israel didn't even know they were bombing an elementary school. They just have a sophisticated radar system and saw that that's where the missile that just killed some of their people came from. So they shot one back. And then, oh, look, now you have like 100 dead kids, and it's a great picture and a good way to, like, you know, say that Israel's a bad guy or whatever. But that's the point. Like, they could definitely just leave. The Palestinians could just fucking leave. They don't have to sit there and get bombed and shit by the Israels. Like, they could just go. They don't have some, like, right to land or whatever. Like, no, sorry, you fucking lost. Israel had a war. It was like 30 years ago. You fucking lost. They won. Go. Get the fuck out. You don't get to say this is still yours. All right? I mean, that's how conquest works. I don't think you guys understand, like, the reason why we have the borders we have is because at one point people killed other people and said, this is our shit. Okay? Like, apparently it's not cool that Israel did that because they only did it like 50 years ago instead of like 200 years ago. So, but no, like they fought a war. They took their shit. It's theirs. Sorry. Get over it. Get the fuck out. Go somewhere else or join the Israel government. You know, you don't get to be your own country. You don't get claimed to be president of an imaginary country that doesn't fucking exist. Mr. President of Palestine or Palestine, whatever. Sorry, getting angry here. By the way, I just want to throw this out there. If you aren't watching a One America News Network, you definitely need to be. They are off the chain lately. They even had a Seth Rich segment last week. I mean, like a good full half hour exclusively about Seth Rich and like pretty much everything you could want to know about Seth Rich, dude. They covered it. It was great. Not only that, I mean, they're like, you know, obviously super, you know, like they like to actually say the news. They're like, I've never once heard them go out of their way to disparage Trump. I have heard them criticize Trump a couple times, but only when it was completely justified and I agreed, which was crazy, right? You know, like, anyways. So, One American News, definitely need to watch that. Also, I listened to this podcast today called the No Gimmicks Podcast. Really good. I mean, I only listened to a couple episodes. One was with Austin Peterson, the Libertarian president candidate who's running for a Senate seat. But still, good podcast. You know, and obviously, if you haven't been listening to Dan Bongino's podcast, all about the whole Russian collusion narrative, you definitely need to go check that out too. So, you know, I mean, I could sit here all day and tell you about other podcasts to go listen to, but really you should just listen to mine, I guess, and all those. But subscribe and share it with your friends and all that stuff. And you know, sorry, it was kind of a ramble today, but I just need to get some stuff off my chest and haven't talked to you guys in a while. So, other than that, you guys have a good one and take it easy.